the presses, people. It's the best goddamn Warhammer 40,000 podcast known to man. It's the Large Blast podcast coming back with another episode in 2 weeks. What? That's good, isn't it? Well, we know we've been slacking off a bit recently, so we thought to you, the loyal fans that did not desert us, will drop another episode sooner rather than later. So welcome. I'm your host, Stoney, and I'm joined, as always, by Welshie.
Hello.
And Matt.
Warhammer, yeah!
And we like to get things kicking off with 100% original content we call Hobbies Goings On, where we check out some hobbies goings on that have been happening in our hosts' lives. So, who wants to go first? Matt, I can see that you're actually painting there. So, what are you doing on this bright sunny day? You've hidden yourself away inside to paint some models.
Yeah, I'm working on some Empire models. I'm working on some Bretonian models. And I'm working on a Space Marine, which we'll get onto, and sort of just, well, having a couple of days off from Sisters, which I'm still mainly working on. I've got my 2K, I've got all the boxes and parts to make my competitive 2K list. I've got some units just to finish putting together, and then I think I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I've been pothole has opened up and yawned in front of you, and you've fallen into it.
Yeah, I don't know. Last few days, I kind of felt like a bit of a blackbird. Sorry,
blackbird.
Delete that. A bit of a magpie. I've been jumping from one project.
One shiny thing to the next.
Yeah, one shiny thing to the next. I start a project, and then I think, oh man, this other thing is really cool. So I've started like 4 different projects today, and I started a couple yesterday. So I've got lots of little things on the move on the painting desk.
Nice. I like doing that sometimes, though. It's better to have lots of little bits going on, a bit of variation.
Yeah. I think I've naturally it's naturally happened after I finished a unit of Sisters, and I've got like the next unit base coated, aerosoled, and I think it's just kind of naturally happened just to give a break.
It's because, let's be honest, painting units of troops is a chore. I don't think anyone really enjoys painting units of troops. I've never met anyone that's like, oh yeah, I love painting my 40th sister. So actually, you can treat yourself every kind of color coat. You can go and do something else for a bit. It's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. Well, Welshie, have you been up to anything?
Most of my Warhammer brain space this week has been taken up with trying really hard not to buy the horusheresy starter set. I've basically just kind of sat in my Warhammer corner at my Warhammer painting desk and just started a kind of mantra to myself to just try and not buy the horusheresy starter set, because I don't need it, but I really want it. I watched a couple of battle reports and it looks bloody brilliant. It looks like everything I remember 7th being, with some tweaks to the things that were annoying, and I think I want to get into it.
Okay, so what have you been using to keep yourself away from these dark thoughts?
What I did was I spent a long time going through and working out what army I would actually collect, and decided that was White Scars, and that really helped because the box set doesn't really contain very many White Scars-esque models. There's lots of foot-slogging troops and a big tank and a dreadnought. So I really thought if I bought the box set, I'd still have to go and pay loads of money for some resin jet bikes from Forge World. So
you're kind of convincing yourself to buy the more expensive thing.
Yeah, I think this might be a trap.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, I watched some battle reports and it looks great. There's none of the bloat. There's no stratagems. I really enjoyed, actually, even though I do like the command point reroll, watching a game where when something went wrong, it just went wrong. There was no like, I'm going to re-roll that dice. It was just, It was just like tough luck, like the olden days, or armor penetration things. There was like 2 tanks duking it out for ages, and then one tank got blown up in turn 1, and the other 2 tanks were basically firing consistently for the whole game and did no damage, which I kind of like that randomness to the game. So yeah, I think I'm going to play horusheresy, but I've decided that I'll probably just get the rule book and see how much Raven Guard I've got in old school Marines, because I've probably got enough to field a Raven Guard heresy army anyway. Have a little practice with that, maybe.
Well, that's a good little starter before you go spending any extra money, I guess.
Exactly.
If you've got the models already.
And then painting wise, I've just been painting these Tempestus Scions that I started for my friend's kill team that I'm doing for him. So that's been quite nice as well. About you, Stoney, what have you been up to? Smoking drugs, kicking back.
Just smoking the ganja, man. Just smoking the ganja. Too high to do any Warhammer, man. Just ain't been doing none. I've been too wasted on weed spliffs. So yeah, nothing. It's the news. Wow. It's the chuffing news.
Have you heard? 6 is now 4s.
It's the news.
Gene Stealer Limo's back.
News. It's that time again, Rule Geeks, where the balance sheet comes up and fucks up all your best laid plans. So what's been happening this time around? Who's been getting boosted? Who's been getting nerfed? Let's find out.
Well, it's interesting. There's a lot of big changes coming. The new chapter approved all of these new command point changes where you're going to be starting the game with a hell of a lot less command points. That certainly is going to affect the way people are playing armies. People that have set up an army to do a huge punch turn 1 with 8 command points won't be able to do that anymore. There's some changes that come off the back of that with regards to relics and extra warlord traits and things that are all going to cost more than they did before. So I think we'll probably see a movement away from really elite, everything has to go right in order armies and have a bit more mobility within the armies, which I think is good for the game. I think no one likes there to be a crazy Death Star that's just, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and now you're dead.
So this is the stuff we talked a bit about last episode where they're changing the command points and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's all going to be in the chapter approved, I believe, which is coming out separately from this balance data sheet. And then also the points changes that they've used to be in chapter approved only. For the first time, we're being released free online. So that's a step in the right direction that we could have had for a long time. But
yeah.
So off the back of the
definitely.
points changes, really, and the balance data sheet, I would say the big losers are going to be definitely the Tyranids. They've been hit pretty badly with the nerf bat, mainly kind of rules that they should never have had in the first place. Like you could basically pick your chapter at the start of the game rather than when you build your army list, which is just silly. Like no one else can do that. So that's been taken away. I think Harlequins are going to get a bit of a nerf as well. So both rules and points based. And then a boost for some of the other armies. I'm quite excited to play Necrons again. Almost the entire codex has got core, like everything. Yeah. So you'll be able to use your rules on almost all the models. Almost everything in the codex has gone down in points. So yeah, looking forward to playing some.
Oh, nice.
Some Necrons.
I mean, that's massive though, because they had a buff in the last one. They had more, so you know they obviously need it. So yeah, it's good.
I think it just shows you that how OP and silly the codex releases are getting, where they just become so strong that this is now the third wave of Necron buffs as the first codex to come out in this edition, in order to get them to a point where just a codex that's just being released is
talking of releases. I think the codex after the Necrons and the Space Marines was the Mechanicus, and now we had the big nerf quite a while ago now, maybe a year ago, when they were kind of winning everything, which was completely justified, where they changed core units, they made those walk-in robot things, they took the core away, they changed some of the stratagems. Basically, pretty much everything has been reversed now, which is interesting because it means that the written book is now back up to date. The codex, the actual physical book, is like back up to date.
It's kind of come full circle to the point where the rules they changed have now just gone back to the original.
Because the Mechanicus kind of slipped down to they weren't getting any wins in at all. So that's pretty cool.
It's just so much to keep up with all of this.
Yeah,
it really has been putting me off playing. I haven't played. This is probably the longest I've gone without a game of 40k in 5 years. Just because staying on top of all of this is just mad. Tau also a massive nerf for get that in for the Tau players out there. But
it feels like, especially the game now at the moment, it's like you're not just having to keep track of your own rules that are constantly changing, but everybody who you're playing as well is like their rules are constantly changing all over the place as well. This balancing act is seems like such a fine line, and sometimes they just take a fucking sledgehammer to it and just like knock everything completely out of balance, you know.
I think it's good that they it's difficult because, you know, we've all sat here at times and said Games Workshop need to step in and rebalance stuff, which is fair, but then I think they could just do a better job of making the codexes in the first place.
I think the guys that make the rules in Games Workshop, there's like two of them, and they're like the odd couple. One of them's really messy, one of them's really neat. One of them wants like all the things to have like 1,000,000 points and 1,000,000,000 guns, and the other guy's like, no, just one gun and roll 1d6 or whatever.
Yeah, it does certainly seem like that at times. I think that's why this Horus Heresy has just become so much more appealing to me as a kind of set, standardized, all in one book.
It's funny that people are pining for 7th, because it felt like by the end anyway, it felt like a bit of a hated edition. Like people seem to have really got bored of it, kind of thing, and now all of a sudden it's like everyone's reaching back for those precious 7th rules.
I love the core rule set for 8th when that came out after 7th, because it was tight and it was small and you had 10, 15 stratagems at your disposal. And as it's progressed through, it's become so bloated and so hard to keep track of what's going on. Unless you're playing, I know people that play every week and absolutely love it because they stay on top of all of this every evening. They go home and read the updates. But if you can't manage that, it's kind of tough.
And if you the thing that's kind of stopping me go back to playing it half serious note is if you stop sort of following it, you kind of, now I'm looking at it like I'm completely lost. I don't know how I can get back into it because I haven't caught up with all the
thought of going to a tournament just scares me. I don't even have a book that tells me what the rules are. It's a shame, I think, what it's the point that it's now got to, because the core rule set for 8th and then the tweaks made for when 9th came out were brilliant. But like I say, maybe it's not the game for us anymore to play every month. But if you're playing it every week, you're probably loving it, and this is probably great stuff. Yeah,
there's probably a lot of people out there that like the constantly shifting nature of the rules and things. So
cheaters, so they can say what they like.
Dust off your old Land Raider because they're going up to toughness 9. Usually we wouldn't bother like mentioning something like this, but toughness 9, that's fucking crazy, right? Land Raider coming out here, strong as fucking oxen.
So good that it might actually mean some Land Raiders get play. This has come out, I think it's been a screenshot, like a leaked shot of the new Chaos Codex where Chaos Land Raiders have gone up to toughness 9. So you assume that all Land Raiders are going up. It's exciting for me to get my Black Templars on the board potentially at some point, because they have a strat to get out after and charge after it's moved. So that's potentially really cool. I mean, I still don't think they're going to be super competitive because it's a kind of weird thing. You're going to put your good stuff in the Land Raider that's now really durable, and then drive your Land Raider straight into the army, which is always a bad.
Well, that's always the most fun thing to do with Land Raiders. That's why they got shit when they took all that stuff that made them able to do that away from them, because that was
exactly.
Talking of tanks, though, also the other thing that happened was the Baneblade all of the super heavy tanks of the Imperial Guard that are based on the Baneblade Sashi went back up, reduced to 2-up armor save, because the Lehman Russ got it last time, and everyone thought, why Lehman Russes get a 2-up armor save, but Baneblade still on a 3. But now
Baneblade doesn't get toughness 9. That's weird still to me. But then maybe I guess Land Raider is the tank, isn't it? There's also been some rules previews because this Chaos Codex is coming out. So I saw the rules for the torments and the mutants that we talked about on Warhammer Day. You remember those crazy Cronenberg models?
Oh yeah.
So they look like they're going to be very playable and very fun. They've got some like resurrection rules, kind of Necron style, where if you don't wipe the whole unit, you kind of mutate from flesh off of the ground and you get some dudes back. They've got like lots of attacks.
Spam.
Yeah, and they're not that expensive. I think they're going to be quite a popular Chaos unit, which is good because I want to see those models literally everywhere. Would make me very happy.
Awesome. So, Matt, I believe that you've skulked out a news story for us to talk about here on the Large Blast Podcast news section. What is it?
It's a bloody big tank. It is the Joy tanks. So, whatever scale that is, big, giant Space Marine toys. I've came across this on Instagram. Genuinely no idea if this is real or if it's like whatever, or it's another company making them as like to sell for the people that have the dolls, the Space Marine dolls. But now you can put your Space Marine dolls in a giant Space Marine tank.
Oh,
Yeah,
man, these are cool.
so-
We should give him a shout out. If you're listening to this and you don't know what we're talking about, because this is an audible format, go on Instagram and search for Primark_Morty and you'll see this image.
Yeah, it's been a while since we talked about the toy stuff. To be honest with you, one of the thing about the toys that kind of I've not been attracted to is the fact that I think, oh, that's going to take up a lot of room somewhere on a mantelpiece. So now the fact that I can get a fucking thing the size of an old school TV to go with it, for it to ride around in as a car, then that's not, I'm still not massively over the moon about them, but it looks cool. It's a big
cool.
fucking tank.
Man, and sorry, I've just actually noticed looking at the picture that there's a drop pod in the background.
Yes, yeah.
Fucking cool, because I bet you can clip them in. These must be
something this guy's made himself, surely. Games Workshop aren't going to be releasing this. The toy company aren't going to be making this.
No, this guy normally does painting stuff, but in the thing, I think he said it was Joy, isn't it?
Joy Toy, I think.
Joy Toy, yeah.
Which is even funnier.
He actually said, yeah. So let's wait and see. I mean, yeah, pretty cool.
I'm looking at it thinking remote control Warhammer right here.
Yeah, definitely.
On a field.
Some robot wars with some of these bad boys would be great. But there you have it. If you're looking to fill some of the space in your house that your wife left when she left you because you started collecting Warhammer toys, then you can now fill it with a huge Warhammer tank.
Rolling in my 6-4.
Hi, Games Workshop employee. If you're listening to this instructional cassette tape, then your franchise of Games Workshop has been underperforming, and management have decided to step in to assist you with your business venture. Of course, having fun and creating cool miniatures is top of our priority list, but what's more top of our list is making money and selling plastic crack to nerds. As motivation, and friendly warning of course, we've enlisted the help of TV hardman Danny Dyer, as secretary of beating down dweebs to help us keep unproductive managers in line.
How are you, son? I just want to say first of all, how fucking well you look.
Oh Danny, you're too kind. But can you tell all the unproductive Games Workshop managers out there what can expect to happen to them if they don't buck up their ideas?
I know I don't want to give too much away, but the way they die, I mean, it's fucking disgusting.
And who's going to do these dreadful things to them, Danny?
Me, the ultimate soldier, right?
But don't despair, as we're here to offer tips to help you increase your sales. Try overcharging gullible customers for paints, or sliding product into children's school bags, so when they leave you can accuse them of stealing and charge their parents the full price. Another top tip to boost your sales is to sell more fucking Space Marines. Try introducing your customers to some new and interesting chapters that they may not have heard of. In this recording, we will learn some of the chapters that you too can flog to children and grown dweebs alike, helping you to fulfill your obligation to the Games Workshop franchise. And of course, never forget our company motto, customer is always first. Customers first. Come on, Danny, sing along.
Fuck that.
Customers first. Yeah. Well, we've all heard about the fucking Ultramarines and the Dark Angels, but what about some of the other forgotten hard bastards of the 40k universe? We're talking about weird and interesting Space Marine chapters that may have been forgotten about. And Welshie, I think that you've got quite an interesting take on this, haven't you? I think that you've got them all from a single founding or something, your guys.
Yeah, so I'm sure Matt and I will kind of split talking about some of our favourite chapters, but mine are all from the 21st founding, the cursed founding, which happened in M36, so somewhere between 30k and 40k, where they tried to do a Belisarius Call, a kind of Primaris Marine type thing, but they didn't have Belisarius Call. They just had some kind of dweeby nerds that weren't quite as good as the Emperor or Belisarius. So they tried to essentially remove all of the flaws from the gene seeds and make they called them the Novus Sapiens or something like that. And they're trying to remove the gene seeds. And obviously they didn't know what they were bloody doing. And it led to all of these kind of weird chapters that have mutations that are frowned upon, to say the least, of the by the Imperium.
So this was before the technology was perfected, and they got some dodgy ones out there.
Well, yeah, kind of after it was they were trying to fix the mess that Chaos had caused, But if the Emperor couldn't do it without there being flaws in the gene seed, I don't know why these dweebs thought they could. And I'm sure we're only like a few editions away from when we find out that what Cool's done isn't quite right either. It's a fairly standard tale.
So what sort of form do these mutations take? Are they like?
They're all kind of different. So one of them, and they all have different successor, different parent chapters as well. So one of them that I found are these guys, the Black Dragons, which are a salamanders chapter, and their mutations are essentially Wolverine. So they have these like hideous bone growths that mutate out through their skin and burst mainly from their kind of forearms, these big spikes. And they just kind of weld metal onto the spikes to kind of cover up that there's this massive bone sticking out of their arm, because it'll probably be frowned upon. And apparently they have fangs and kind of elongated dragon faces as well. So they really are pushing the boundary from what I've read. The Inquisition don't like them particularly. The picture that I'm looking at here of one of them, a great piece of art, is like if you've played Mortal Kombat, is it Baraka? The guy with like the two big stabby thing.
Baraka vibes from this guy with his hand spikes.
Yeah.
Can they pull them back in as well, or is that does he just live his life with two fucking spikes?
I think wiping his ass is going to be difficult. But he's probably got a man for that. But I think they're pretty cool. Some of them have horns as well, so they look like proper demonic. I mean, you couldn't get more chaosy looking than having horns growing out of your head. But they're still pretty loyal apparently, and they're often seen as the kind of Inquisition's red line. We can deal with some fangs and some bone protrusions, but any more than that, and we're going to start questioning stuff.
Well, they're kind of chill. They just have to lurk at the back. They're like, you've got to come in the tradesman's entrance. We can't have people seeing us associate with you publicly. Yeah.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I hadn't either until I did the research for this. And I think actually, knowing which chapters you're going to talk about, Matt, I think what makes some of the chapters good is the logos. They're symbols. Symbols are really important, I think, when you pick a chapter. And actually, these Black Dragon ones is kind of it's a white dragon on a black background, but it's really cool. It's a proper like kind of Drake thing. And I think most of the chapters we'll talk about on the episode today all have quite cool pauldrons. So that's my first one there, the Black Dragons.
Yeah, good branding.
Cool. So next up, we've got some Howling Griffin action. You've probably seen these guys. They're half yellow, half red, kind of Harlequin style checkerboard meeting around the cock area.
Before you tell us about them, Matt, I have to say, I think it is my least favorite color scheme.
The
alternate yellow and red, I find it grim.
My first line in my Howling Griffin notes is one of the best Space Marine color schemes. Classic it's a classic second tier chapter that has been around for decades, and they have been around for decades. It's a classic color scheme that has been people in White Dwarf, people in Games Workshop. Someone has always got Howling Griffin's army tucked away that they dust off and get out for a photo shoot. I remember some Golden Demon stuff where they were Howling Griffins. It's really cool. So I thought I'd paint one. So I'm painting one at the moment. Because I've always loved the color scheme. I love it.
Yeah. Ketchup and mustard, baby. So what are they all about, these Howling Griffins? We've all seen the color scheme. We've all recognized it. But what are they about? What's their philosophy?
They're from the Ultramarines. So their philosophy, as you can probably imagine, is pretty much the Codex Astartes. They adhere to the Codex Astartes pretty much by the book. There's no issue with their gene seed. So they're like proper hereditary from the Ultramarines. They're the smart asses. Yeah. Flawless gene seed. They use the Griffin symbol as their chapter symbol on their shoulder pad, which, as we've just discussed, means their branding is on point. In fact, their branding is better than the Ultramarines. So they're an improvement on the Ultramarines. They have actually, doing the research into them, because I didn't know that much about them, I just knew them for the color scheme. They have a huge amount of battle honors. They've basically been in combat since they were created, which was sort of around sort of similar time as the 21st founding, maybe earlier, sort of middle middle between 30k and 40k. So they've basically been on campaign the whole time. So they're like real staunch loyalists, loads of battle honors.
Veterans.
Yeah, but they have like this weird kind of particular hatred for the word bearers, and a particular demon that managed to kill their chapter master. And in the 13th Black Crusade, the replacement chapter master worked out where this demon was, and in this like big space battle, you know, Abaddon's coming out to invade Cadia, they all just fucked off. They all just fucked off to fight this demon. They managed to find him and kill it.
Pull up, it's time to go.
Yeah. And everyone was like, where are you going? Just like, oh, we're going on our own quest. They have oaths that they take really seriously. And the one thing that I thought was cool was that they're actually allowed, the High Lords of Terror have allowed them to take recruits from multiple worlds. Most Space Marines, you only have one world that you get your recruits from, but they do have a home world. It's called Mancora, but their recruits are not just from Mancora; they're from other planets that they're allowed to recruit from. But Mancora in particular has a higher than normal amount of psychers, so they have a lot of librarians, and the librarians are particularly powerful. And one of their psychic powers is they like howl. So the librarians howl into the warp. So they are literal howling griffins, and it like breaks the link between the psychic warp realm and our physical existence. So like demons can be disconnected from the warp, which is quite cool. So the librarians are literal howling griffins.
They literally shout a demon out of existence.
Yeah.
Like, fuck off.
Yeah, can they have howl-offs with the space wolves? They get together and see who can what howls better, a griffin or a wolf? I don't know.
That'd be some cool ass concert, like just fucking smoke a number and go and watch two guys sing whilst lightning happens and demons disappear and reappear and stuff. That'd be fucking badass.
But there are rumors that, so at the beginning I said that their gene seed is flawless. There's no degeneration or anything. But there are rumors that actually their obsession with the word bearers and their like obsessive hatred for them, they try and hunt them down wherever they go, is actually affecting their gene seed. I can't remember what it's called, but it's this genetic flaw that's starting to appear, a bit like the Black Rage, where they get like a tunnel vision, and they just focus, their entire existence is focused on hunting down word bearers. So some of them get really just obsessed with hunting them down, a bit like, you know, people get like a workaholic, just cannot stop. So they don't do anything else other than trying to track word bearers down. They just get completely obsessed.
That's like their version of the Black Rage.
Yeah. So if even in a battle, if one of them goes like that, they'll just like run off and and imagine that there's a word bearer around the corner, where actually there might not be, but they just fuck off.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so there you go.
Nice. And their pauldron logo, pretty similar to Bretonian flag.
Yeah.
I mean, it's out.
Yeah, there's a real knightly look to them. Other than the aesthetic, not really in the lore, but yeah. And I did paint one of my Bretonian knights in this color scheme, but in honor of the Howling Griffin.
Do you reckon you could do like? Has anyone ever seen like a Battenberg color scheme where you mix this up, but you have like the pink and beige? Oh man, Battenberg.
I'll do a Battenberg night. I'll do one for my Bretonian army.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they you say they're like an Ultramarines spin-off, right? But like looking at them, you'd say Imperial Fist fucked a Blood Angel, right? Something like that. So how do we know how they got the yellow, the mustard and ketchup there?
No.
Customers first. It's customers first.
Firehawks Welshie. These guys sound cool. They've got Hawk and Fire in their name. They sound like a cool ass band from the late 80s. What are they all about?
Well, they've definitely been name generated from the LBP Legion chapter name generator. So these guys, there's not that much that's known about them, but they're another one from this 21st founding. But they're one of the few that don't seem to have too crazy a defect. They're really, really proud, and they're like ultra religious. So they don't really follow the Codex Astartes. And there's rumors that there are a successor chapter of the Ultramarines, like the Howling Griffins, but they don't follow the Codex Astartes. So basically, nobody from the Ultramarines or Terra will accept that they're related to the Ultramarines because the Ultramarines are like so pro Codex. So these guys do things their own way. And they're pretty tragic because they're the only Space Marine chapter that has lost 2 homeworlds.
Oh,
So
shit.
their whole first homeworld was destroyed. Then they got themselves a new one, and that was destroyed. And then they went into space and had like a kind of floating phalanx style base. And that was sucked into the warp. So
My God.
these guys,
God.
They are. So these guys are sleeping on sofas all over the universe.
couch surfers supreme.
Yeah.
As an advert for a Space Marine chapter, that is the worst.
They've lost everything.
Yeah, twice.
Twice.
Yeah. How would you even sign up? Where would you go? You wouldn't be able to.
I really like them because I like their color scheme. It's kind of all flames up the side, and that might remind you of another chapter. And it is said that then when their kind of space base was lost into the warp, about 200 survived, and they are the Legion of the Damned. So these are actually possibly the parent chapter of Legion of the Damned, which I'm not sure we're going to talk about this evening because we've talked about them loads before, but fiery ghost demon Space Marines that aren't really there, these could potentially be the daddies for them. And we all know Legion of the Damned are some of the coolest heavy metal-esque Space Marine chapters out there.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, their paint scheme is very cool. It's sort of yellow orange with some sort of gold trim and that.
And sweet black loincloth and a kind of phoenix pauldron, which is, well, I guess it's a fire hawk.
Yeah. They probably did that after their first homeworld was destroyed. They're like, we've risen from the flames, nothing can go wrong now. We're the fire hawks.
So it comes along and smashes number 2. Yeah. Brilliant. So that's the Firehawks. Not too much known about them, but I thought it was cool that the Legion of the Damned potentially have this successor chapter that are just rubbish.
Cool. So Emperor's Spears. This looks like an interesting set of guys. They're sort of blue, a bit like, dare I say, an Ultramarine spin-off chapter.
You would be correct.
Oh.
But I wanted to talk about these because last episode, Stoney, you said that you were trying to find like a water-based chapter, and these guys came to mind. So these guys are obviously themed on kind of Greco-Roman imagery, and their chapter symbol is a trident because they come from a homeworld which is basically mostly water. The homeworld is called Nemeton, which is obviously like a very similar to Neptune. It's an ocean world, and it was liberated by the Ultramarines. And they are an Ultramarine successor chapter. The tribes people on the planet, though, they didn't like the Ultramarine stuff, so they left all of the marble cities that the Ultramarines had built. And the humans with the Ultramarines have built all these cities, and they left them. So now the homeworld is, I mean, it's just like Greek islands essentially, but all the marble cities are in ruins, where they've been abandoned and they're not lived in. So yeah, it's just someone's come up with a Space Marine chapter that's based in the Greek islands.
Cool.
Yeah.
So there is a water-based stuff out there,
and
that sounds interesting.
The whole thing is based on Neptune and fighting around these archipelagos. So the planet Nemeton is strategically important. So they were created to hold this particular area of space with some other Space Marine chapters. And luckily for them, they are right next to a Forge World, which is a lesser known Forge World that doesn't exist in terms of the game. But these guys do exist in terms of the game now, because this is one of the chapters that the White Dwarf magazine have had a number of articles in, including rules to play them, painting guides, stratagems. So you can use a White Dwarf and fill these on the game board with their own special rules.
Awesome. Are there any water-based rules for them? Do they get
like some of the psychic powers, I think, had they had like water-based things, and obviously their weapons, they have kind of trident like spears, and you can give them that relics that are like tridents and stuff. And some of the other special, the way they move around is, I mean, it's just, in terms of the game, it's just like, you can move an extra inch or whatever if you use a stratagem, but the fluff behind it is like, it's because they're running around on all these islands and stuff. So the fluff makes it sound better than it actually ends up on the game board.
Yeah.
But some of the armies, and some of the armies of these guys look really good.
You can imagine their librarians being a bit like Aquaman, like calling a shark to kind of attack, and then everyone being like, well, how's it going to get to me? I'm in the middle of a desert. So, oh no, if only there were some aquatic animals nearby for me to control with my librarian powers.
Like, someone seems to have put seawater in my trousers, so it looks like I've pissed myself, and you just see him on the other side of the battlefield, like, ha.
Why aren't they called the Emperor's Tridents?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't understand why the logo is a trident, and then the trident sounds great. Yeah, the Emperor's Trident, or the I don't know which came first, or I don't know if. So basically, they appeared in a Black Library book. There's a Black Library book about them, and then White Dwarf came up with all the rules and stuff. So I don't know whether the Black Library just created them like a couple of years ago, or whether they'd been around before that.
Well, that's an interesting point about all the successor chapters, isn't it? Like, if the 20 main ones or 18 main ones don't take your fancy, it just gives you complete license to come up with your own thing. Yeah. And it gives authors license to just come up with a completely new story. Oh, there's a chapter we didn't know existed.
Wowza! What a great bunch of friends we've made in the first half of our journey. I'm sure your tiny brains are growing tired already. Why, Danny's so excited, he's even had to have a sit down.
Look, I'm going to be straight with you now. I've had a bit of a late one. I feel a bit ropey. So, I hope he just takes it nice and easy on me, because I'm really not up to much.
Oh, Danny, but we do have a lot planned for you. Need I remind you that you are contractually obliged to do our bidding after you were arrested for trespassing in our top secret labs and huffing industrial solvents?
Made me feel proper sick.
Oh shit, really? You're not actually gonna... Oh, fuck. Ah, there he goes. He's fucking done it.
Do apologise to all my lady fans out there. That is horrible. That is fucking horrible.
Oh, God, that is horrible. What the fuck were you drinking last night? But don't let any of that fool you. He's still the man to rough you up if you don't pay your debts. Tell him your credentials, Danny.
I'm sort of an interrogator and all that's my game. I interrogate suicide bombers and get information out of them, so you can imagine the shit I do.
So rest up, GW employee, because we'll be back soon.
Check this out. You know the deal.
So welcome back, sports fans, to another edition of the Warhammer Wrestling League, where we take two Warhammer guys and pit them against each other to find out once and for all who is the toughest in the Warhammer Wrestling. So let's take a look at today's competitors. Coming in the red corner, we've got Trazin the Internet, the Necron Lord that collects everything around him. In the other corner, we've got Belisarius Cool, the guy like a big tent of fucking tendrils. In this, the grumpy old robots wrestle off.
Fight!
So boys, who do you think is going to win between Trazin the Internet and Belisarius Cool?
I think they'd probably just start like
Having a chat.
talking about physics or something. Yeah. Start having an argument.
No, your equation's not right.
Yeah.
It's 1001 100.
Do you think that they'd maybe like, they'd get in there, there'd be a couple of like jabs thrown from Belisarius Cool, and maybe like Trazin's like one of his compartments opens up and an ancient game from like some prehistoric era falls out, and they're
Let's
like,
settle this like men.
yeah. Well, I guess for them it would be like, oh, you play Uno or something, and then sit down and like play like have an Uno off or something for hours and hours.
You can imagine them sat like, can't you, on one of those, you know, like those outdoor chess tables you see in Miami or in like parks in Russia, just the sat outdoors.
They bring one of those little clocks that you've got to
yeah.
But they're making moves like super fast.
I think size-wise, Cool's got the size, isn't he? He's a much bigger boy.
He's a big boy.
He's
got
got a lot
and he's got loads of
tentacles.
mechadendrites. Yeah.
I think he'd be intrigued potentially. That might be a bit of a distraction. He'd be quite intrigued by Trazin. You'd want to kind of study him rather than just get straight to fighting him. Whereas Trazin
absolutely. If this is a fight to the death that we usually kind of make it as, whoever leaves behind a body, that body is getting tinkered with hard by the other person.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough. I mean, if presumably Trazin doesn't have his labyrinth thing. Tesseract bolt.
Yeah.
So without that, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Belisarius
has got loads of weapons.
One of the things about this is, if this is like a bare knuckle brawl, like Belisarius is fucking Swiss Army knife. Like all his arms are like fucking chainsaws and stuff. So he's got
that big the axe. I mean, in game
he could just sit on him.
In game. But I think his Trazin, when you read the books about him, his necrodermis is pretty good at re-knitting. Like he can kind of like lose an arm and just grow another one back. So I think he'd be in the fight for a while. But I think Cool, just based on his weaponry, would probably take Trazin out if they weren't just distracted.
So it'd be a very slow, probably boring fight to watch after a while.
It literally takes place over like 100 years. I say, they play fucking Uno for like 20 of those years, and then
like chopping a part of each other off, and then being like, "Oh, you've done that. That's interesting." Just
explain that. How have you done that?
Yeah, they kind of perform each other's autopsies. So they're just like a big pile of bits in the middle of the fucking.
The other thing that Trazin does quite a lot in the books is he casts his consciousness into like any Necron and just makes them change their necrodermis to look like him. So it would probably be the case that Cool would win, and then Trazin would be like, "Oh, it wasn't me all along. I'm on my spaceship still."
Yeah,
he's sneaky.
Yeah, but I think Cool's got it.
Yeah, Cool's got it.
I agree. I think it's got to be Cool.
Fatality.
Hi, Games Workshop employee, and welcome to part 2 of your instructional cassette to help you improve the sales of your Games Workshop store. You've just caught me and Danny Dyer on a team building retreat in the countryside. Because remember, health and fitness is important, but not as important as making us our goddamn money. Isn't that right, Dan?
If I was in a proper war situation I totally understand what you're doing here, because you're trying to give me an insight into what it would be like. I don't think I can have a shit in a bit of clean film.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Danny, will you just go and have a shit behind those bushes over there or something? You're supposed to be the fucking muscle in this situation. Anyway, without further ado, let's find out about some more space...
I gave it a go.
More Space Marine chat...
But I didn't have any joy.
Ah, for fuck's sake, Danny, just roll the fucking clip. The Minotaur's coming up next, I think, Welshie. Tell us about some of these golden boys.
Well, these guys are particularly interesting in that no one really knows anything about these guys. They are super shrouded in mystery. Again, from this 21st cursed founding, their gene seed has been described as chimeric, i.e. a combination of multiple gene seeds, which is super heretical to even suggest that you spliced one chapter with another. Which is...
Not heard of that before.
Really cool.
Just got all the sweepings off the gene seed factory floor and put them in a blender. So,
and these guys, like kind of chaosy mutation is that they're super racist. They're like ultra xenophobic to the point where they don't even like talking to humans. Just like, no, you're evolved. You're like, we're perfect. You're human, you're definitely flawed, you're probably part of chaos. I don't even want to be part of your life. So, known for being a complete hammer. They don't break up. They're 1,000 strong, so they're quite big for a kind of smaller successor chapter. and they refuse to break up their army, so they don't send small parties to various places. If you call in the Minotaurs, you get all the Minotaurs.
All the
at
Minotaurs, they
once.
roll as one.
Yeah, for sure. And they're completely distrusted because no one knows anything about them other than they might be chimeric. So the Inquisition hate them.
They
All
kind
of the
sound like
orders of the
arseholes
Inquisition.
as well, to be honest. So,
Yeah.
They definitely do. Like Hereticus hate them because they think they're about to fall for chaos. The Xenos guys hate them because the Minotaurs hate the Xenos hunters because they think that they're probably just going to use some Xenos tech and that's not allowed. They just seem like really tough guys to get on with. But another really interesting thing about them is it's thought that they report directly to the High Lords of Terror. They don't have like a success. They don't have like a kind of standard chapter master route of kind of upwards to a Primarch. So there's this kind of thought that they're the kind of High Lord of Terror whipping boys, go out and do the scuzzy deeds no one wants to do. But I thought they were pretty cool to have that kind of.
I remember hearing this thing a while ago, and I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it was the Minotaurs. It might have been the Minotaurs or the Red Scorpions or something like that. But like that their Primarch is actually Kator, the Fate Weaver guy, the character from Teench Range, where like he makes this like weird deal. And it's one of these things that they discover after a certain point is they all have to go to this like space hulk and spaz out there for a little while, killing stuff on there, and then eventually Fate Reaver shows up and it's like, haha, I made a deal to keep you guys in existence or something, I'm your daddy. And then he like disappears off, and they're like, oh god, I'm like some weird chaos hybrid. And then they know the secret. But that, like, I honestly don't take my word for that, because that might have been some like just random bullshit for some completely different chapter. But
that sounds good though. I mean, that could explain the kind of change up with the gene seed there.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool to have a kind of High Lords linked chapter that kind of works a little bit independently of pretty much everything else, and that is hated by everything else and hates everything else. So
Gestapo-esque.
We've been talking about branding. There's something a little bit Greco about these.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Minotaur link in and of itself, but
just it looks like a Greek pot.
It's like shoulder pad. It's a really nice kind of brassy, bronzy terracotta mix, isn't it?
Well, when I first saw them, I thought, oh, these guys are definitely halfway to falling to corn with like the bull's head, and they're all like the brass color, like
A lot of the models that I've seen, there aren't actually that many. Sometimes you Google a chapter and it's the Google images just filled with people who've converted and made these things, but there weren't that many for these guys.
Oh, really?
But the people that had done them had done a lot of like real Greco-Roman additions and kind of circular shields and kind of hoplite spears and the kind of horsehair helm things are.
I think you can get some pretty cool bits for these guys from Forge World. I think they've got some shoulder pads and things.
You do get in the Deathwatch boxes, you get a shoulder pad with one of these on.
Oh, do you?
Which is kind of odd to me, because I think Captain Artemis was a Minotaur, the guy who was like do you remember they brought out the kind of Heroes Deathwatch where they all had a kind of name? I think he was the captain of that. So I mean, they probably got a good spot in the Deathwatch because they're so xenophobic. So if they're the Deathwatch probably lap these guys up.
What have any of the other ones you've spoken about so far been in the Deathwatch stuff?
Possibly, I don't know. I know that there was a direct link with these guys, but I mean, possibly the Deathwatch draw on everyone, don't they? I mean, they even use. Although you wouldn't want to be like whipping out your Xenos blade with your mate brother Deathwatch Minotaur next to you. You might find it shoved up your ass quite quickly.
Customers first. It's customers first.
Cool. So Mantis Warriors, these guys are fucking mad. They're painted up like praying mantises. Tell us a little bit about these guys.
I picked these guys because they were named after an insect, which I thought was quite cool for a Space Marine chapter.
The Jiminy Crickets.
The Mantis Warriors. Their symbol is a mantis head, with particularly sharp, whatever they're called, prongs, mandibles, And they are, they're really interesting. I have heard of them before. They're in some of the Forge World Imperial Armor books, especially the Badab. There's 2 books about the Badab War, and they're in there. And I thought they were made up by Forge World, but then there's a picture I found of a really old artwork with the Mantis Warriors. So perhaps they've been around for a while.
Yeah, I mean, that almost looks like Rogue Trader art. That it's a beaky that we're looking at here, and it looks like one of those things you used to get in White Dwarf, where they just did printed pages and pages of different paint schemes, and
and actually the paint scheme is, you know, Space Marines aren't particularly well camouflaged. You got ultramarine blue, yellow Imperial fists, which stand out pretty much anywhere. But these guys are like different shades of green, so they're almost like camouflage Space Marines.
It depends where you're trying to hide, because otherwise
that's true. Yeah,
they're still pretty fucking garish. I've got to be honest with you.
They're pretty easy to spot on Mars, I reckon.
Yeah. And some lore that I found out. So they've been fighting a lot with the Lamenters and the Astroclaws. And it was in the Badab War where the Astroclaws betrayed the Imperium and the Emperor, and they fell to chaos. And the Mantis Warriors didn't know that, so they were kind of helping the Astroclaws around, helping them with whatever they were doing around the Badab star system or sector or whatever it is, doing loads of stuff. And then they realized that actually the Astroclaws had fallen to chaos, and they'd been helping them out for, like, I don't know, a long time.
Oh, these fucking Mantis mugs.
So they're like, damn. So it's a real stain on their honor. They're really embarrassing.
Help me stack up these skulls into this pentagram. Like, all right, fine.
Yeah. Oh, we need to blow up this loyal world. Okay.
Who's your decorator? This is an odd choice.
Yeah,
skins on the wall, eh? Not seen that before.
Yeah.
They were like, we just assumed you'd fallen to chaos as well. You're called the Mantis Warriors. You know, you've got like a weird bad guy symbol.
Yeah, the Astroclaws thought they were for chaos. Yeah, but they are deeply, I mean, ashamed is the wrong word, but they're deeply ashamed of this. So much so that this has also started to affect their gene seed. So a bit like the Howling Griffins, their gene seed was fine, and then they've kind of done this, and it's affecting their gene seed. I guess that's what happened with the Blood Angels. It was fine, and then it wasn't fine. When their flaw kind of happens, they sink into a depression because they seek forgiveness. So like they need forgiveness so hard because of what they did with the Astroclaws, that they seek into like a depression, and they get tunnel vision, and they can't see properly, and then I think eventually they kind of lose their sight. But and it happens in a battle. They just get like tunnel vision on an enemy, and they can't see around them, and then eventually they lose their sight. So it's obviously not a very efficient to lose. Yeah, not ideal.
All right. And any word on how they developed the name Mantis? Was this something else to do with their vision? Like you say, as they lose their vision, do their eyes move further to the side of their head until they eventually disappear?
Turn into an insect. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that's the next thing that's going to happen in the Mantis Warrior lore. Oh. Yeah, turn into what's the bit like the Fly?
Oh, yeah, Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
But now that you've mentioned the Fly, this is a completely off-topic tangent, but I watched The Crow for the first time the other day. Is Conrad Kurz just the Crow? Have you guys seen The Crow?
I think I've seen that. Yeah.
Thought that, you saw the Crow's somewhere between Kurz and what's his name? You know, Korax, though, isn't he? Because he's like he's less chaotic than Kurz. He's more like a good guy. So the Lamenters, they're kind of yellow. They've got a sign of like a heart on like a cool checkered background. It could be like maybe a punk record from the 90s album, or a symbol you might see at a rave. What are they, Welshie?
I think they definitely deserve the prize for hardest to paint pauldron.
Yes,
not only got a nail, a checkered board, but a circle, a heart, and a tear all in one shoulder.
Reminds me of a Van shoe.
It does look like a Vans shoe, doesn't it? It does look like the Avril Lavigne Vans special. Yeah. It's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, because it's just the weirdest like design choice you've ever seen.
Yeah.
It must originally have been a kind of joke. No one did this seriously. Anyway, the reason the little drops there and the hearts there is that they are of Blood Angels descent. And actually, Matt, it's great that you just introduced the Badab War with the Mantis Warriors, because these guys were also on the wrong side, helping out the Astral Claws. And it's why they're called the Lamenters, because they are lamenting their decisions. They are very similarly, they're basically just super depressed. And they entered into a 100-year pact of penitence to they are the crazy emo Vans wearers.
Before this happened, where they just called the cool guys or something, and they just wore like khaki trousers and dressed in Gap shirts and stuff.
What were they lamenting beforehand? The midlife crisis Marines. But their kind of 21st founding weird curse thing is they essentially have bad luck that follows them round. So they've always kind of, even before this, but even before they picked the wrong side in the Badab War, had kind of things just kind of went wrong. They're always in the wrong place at the wrong time, or turned up slightly too late, or got the directions wrong, put the postcode wrong into the GPS.
Oh man, they're just a bit useless.
Yeah, which I think is just hilarious for a Space Marine chapter.
No, they're sad about it.
But they're quite common. You see quite a lot of them, in the community. I think Lamenters. I've definitely seen them.
It's one of like you say, that pauldron. It's like a painting flex.
Yeah.
So and they're fucking yellow as well, which is the rest of their color scheme is yellow. So that's a pain in the balls to paint. Yeah. So it's the whole thing is so you lament fucking buying and painting a bunch of them because they're just a bummer to be around.
For sure. Like I say, super emo Vans is possibly the best way to sum them up, Matt. I think you've nailed it there. You're thinking angsty teen rock, depressed Space Marines.
Well, I just wanted to give a little nod, move on to the Angry Marines, who are a fan-made chapter. You guys have probably seen them around on places, and they're all yellow, and their sign is just either someone flipping the bird, doing the middle finger, or like a kind of a bit kind of like Blink-182-y or something, like a sad face.
Yeah, their logo's like an unhappy emoji, isn't it?
Yeah, more or less a pissed off looking face. Yeah. And all their imagery is stuff like I've seen people make, conversions and stuff of cannons that launching angry Marines into people, and because they love just fighting. They've got their main weapon of choice is fists, so they just punch stuff. And they're
not even power fists, are they? They just just
fists. Something like that. They're just big fucking fists, but they just punch stuff and are pissed off and write "fuck you" on all their tanks. So they'll do things like they'll be. One of their weapons is just a man with a chain with another angry Marine on the end of the chain that they swing around. So basically, like if all the Chuck Norris memes made a army, it would be these guys. But I wanted to give them a little nod. They're fan-made faction, so even though they exist, they're not like canon in any way.
Yeah.
What about the Caridans? You like the Space Sharks, don't you?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the classic.
I love the Space Sharks.
Oh, Space Sharks. Yeah, those guys are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I reckon we could get another episode out of these chapters, though. There's a lot out there.
Yeah.
We look into it.
Let's do a part 2.
Let's save a part 2 for these.
But I think that we could maybe just give them a little nod now, because they're just like, for people that don't know about the Space Sharks, they're like these cool kind of surfer bros that are also Space Marines, and they're not like, I think they're one of these guys that aren't like massively into technology, are they? Because they like showed up on some tropical island and then they had to, craft coconut power fists and things like that.
They're the closest they come to our custom chapter, aren't they? Really?
Yeah. Did you? So this was something I found out today. Did you know that there was a Space Marine chapter that the AdMech founded?
I did not.
No.
Who are they?
Yeah. This is, they're called the Steel Confessors. And in the 36th millennium, the AdMech, they felt like they needed something stronger to defend their Forge Worlds. So naturally, they thought, we'll nick some gene seed and we'll make our own Space Marine chapter. And then when we've made them, nobody will ask any questions. Everybody asked questions. And and the High Lords of Terror, the Inquisition found it out, reported it to the High Lords of Terror, and the High Lords of Terror said, actually, we'll keep the Space Marines, but they're not under your control. They'll be independent, like a normal Space Marine chapter, but they have really strong links with the Mechanicum. The gene seed was stolen from the Iron Hands, actually. And they basically, the AdMech give them the best shit that they make, so they get all the best gear. And
that's
they're
kind
just
of heresy itself, isn't it?
Probably.
Bolters and stuff like
that's quite a cool, faction to model though. You could do some real cool conversions as well.
Yeah, and you could, and back when I can't even remember if you can have armies now with 2 different codexes, but you could have like some Skitarii in there, and some knights, maybe. I think they use normal Space Marine stuff. It's just they get like the best bolter rather than like the knockoff bolter.
They get hot presses,
Martian made.
And they were allowed to exist. But also interestingly, and we've spoken about this before, I think when we spoke about the Black Templars, but most Space Marines, they don't worship the Emperor as a god, but these guys do. They have like 3 deities. They naturally worship the machine god, the Emperor as a god, and Ferrus Manus as almost like a godlike.
Well, it's
being.
the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, isn't it?
Oh, exactly.
You got the
boom.
You got
the 3. Didn't think of that. Yeah. And I did. Yeah. Well, Stoney, you mentioned it earlier in passing about the creamy coloured Space Marines, the Tome Keepers, which has been all over White Dwarf recently, which was like a home brewed White Dwarf chapter that they created with the 40k background writers.
Have you been reading the short stories in the back of the White Dwarfs, Matt? Yeah, they've been quite good actually.
There's been they have been some. It's like a short story, isn't it? That they've serialized
it with the kind of fighting the Necrons, aren't they? Which is they're super boring.
They are
they just have to read from a book. And they write everything down at the end of the day. It's like in their diaries.
The Tome Keepers, they're just books.
I wrote here, definitely the sort of chapter a magazine publisher would come up with. Because they just write stuff.
They had this whole thing, don't they, where if one of their mates died, they have to write the last chapter in their book and close the book in like a book closed ceremony.
I quite like that though. I quite like that. But that line was how they came up with the whole idea. And it's quite good to see it in White Dwarf for maybe younger people to kind of create their own Space Marine chapter. And through the White Dwarfs, you've kind of seen how they've fluffed up the whole lore behind them, and now there's loads of people have armies of them, and White Dwarf had the free transfer.
That's the kind of thing I'd do as a kid, you'd kit bash something together, and then I'd go away and write like an A4 page about it. And turn up to play and be like, "Man, before we play, I'm going to read you a page. I had a page of lore."
When I first collected, I started collecting Space Marines. It was before the Black Templar Codex came out, so I started collecting the plastic Space Marines, and my chapter was called the Emperor's Light, and I used to paint their like symbol was a candle, and on their shoulder pad was like a candle with a flame on. And I'd photoshopped, well, probably done it on paint, but I'd like done my own color scheme on there, and it was like bleached bone shoulder pad.
Bleached bone. Oh, that's a real paint name.
Chaos black armor. And I had a folder with like the Space Marine on the top. I can't remember anything that I've written in there, but there's definitely a folder with the Space Marine on the front, and then like loads of crap, probably like drew out the star system. Like, they come from the 5th planet in the segmentum. Blah, blah, blah.
This Space Marine with really big muscles looks a bit like you, Matt. Is that? So, failing Games Workshop employee, we've come to the end of our journey. Hopefully you've picked up a few new chapters you can sell to your customers and become a solvent member of the GW family once again. Hey Danny, how are you doing?
Strong.
That's fab! Tell me, have you got any parting words for these fucking dweebs?
I'm untraceable. I'm a man of the shadows. I can't catch me. I've got the old Bill after me. Obviously, they know I'm knocking about. Do you know what I mean? I've got the Colonel comes back from Afghan. He's looking for me. He knows I've got AWOL.
You know, Danny, you've talked a big game since becoming Secretary of Beating Down Dweebs. But so far, all I've seen is you brag, puke, and fail to shit behind a bush. You have failed me, Danny Dyer, and more importantly, you have failed Games Workshop. So let me ask you now, how do you feel?
Feel a little bit uneasy. Feel like I'm being watched. I'll be straight with you.
And with good reason, me old China. You see, we jacked a gorilla full of a mix of John Blanche and Gav Thorpe DNA, and it turned into a big dick killing machine.
Yeah, he is. Look at the size of him. Look, monster.
Yes. Embrace the void, Danny Dyer. And remember,
This could be you if you don't buck up your idea, shitty Games Workshop employee.
we'll be in touch.
That was fucking proper hard.
The 70s.
The 80s.
The 90s.
Oh, we're going back in time. Is that a space squat? It's time we take you back with a
Blast from the past.
Of course,
Cue the
a
music,
blast from the
sorry.
past was where we take a model from the past and have a look at it. And we're talking old school bikes. We're no Invader ATVs here. We're talking good old side carriage with a bunch of guns on it. What are we looking at, Matt?
We're looking at the classic part metal, part plastic attack bike, the sidecar. Yeah, classic Space Marines.
So cool.
So cool, so silly, but yeah,
So much better than an ATV.
yeah. I mean, I wanted to talk about this on the Blast from the Past for a while. It's been on my list of topics. I don't know. It's just a classic. I've got a part metal one and the newer part plastic one. And I did kind of think earlier today, this is a model that they've kind of killed. But I guess the ATV is the kind of Primaris version, but it just isn't. It just isn't the same.
I know. I've always thought this model's really goofy, to be honest with you.
It is
I
goofy.
mean, I get it's like old school charm, but even back in the day, I remember thinking like, ooh, I'm not sure about this.
The gunner's always looks like it's really squashed in.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, side carriages, I always just kind of assume that side carriages for like a guy with a big Great Dane or something like that he needs to drive around in a cute fashion. It seems less warlike, you know?
Yeah, Great Dane or a melter gun, one of the two.
Yeah.
These the part plastic, part metal models were a strange thing, weren't they?
Yeah, they were horrible.
Well, I mean, I always remember
The gun was so heavy.
when you bought one of the blister packs with kind of a character.
Oh yeah,
the backpack would always be plastic.
Yeah,
and I always remember that the casting on those backpacks was always worse than any of the other on sprue stuff. Like any of the plastic that was in a part metal, part plastic kit just seemed to be like a different type of plastic. Like it was just always bad. Like mold lines that just like receded mold lines. I don't even know how they happened, but I remember them being a right pain in the ass.
I do remember with this model, like I think at one point the Land Speeder had a metal like multi-melter or whatever.
Yeah.
But this one in particular, like if you had to glue it or it would just kind of fold down on itself and the gun just wouldn't stay where you wanted the gun.
I'm having to use araldite as like an 8-year-old kid, like mixing up araldite on a little sponge.
Yeah. But, and it, I mean, in a way, like it kind of also reminded me of the trike thing for the
the new squat thing.
Yeah. And the old kind of squat model it's kind of a hangover from that when the original squat range. Yeah. I think they've been around since, from what I could find from second edition Space Marine Codex. So they've been around a long time. But it also reminded me of do you guys remember what the first plastic flyer was that Games Workshop made? So not Forge World, because now they're everywhere. But I remember when this thing came out, everyone was like, "Wow, we're gonna get planes! This is insane!"
Was it the Guard one with the engine in the center?
The Valkyrie.
The Valkyrie.
No, it was the Storm Raven Space Marines.
Was it?
Oh yeah.
The funny little box one. I've got one.
No,
here,
the transport one.
Yeah. I know
it is like a box. Yeah.
with the wings backwards. That's the thing I always used to find weird. The wing, the sweep on the wing is
all
the wrong way
the
around.
all the Games Workshop, all the wings are backwards. Yeah. The but and the thing that I could never understand was that flyer came out in the Blood Angels Codex, and it didn't even come out in a Space Marine Codex. The first army to get it was just the Blood Angels army. It just made no sense. I remember it took like years for them then to bring out all the other flyers that you could use. So this for like a year, the Blood Angels were the only army that had a flyer in it, unless you used Forge World. But yeah, crazy days.
Strange, crazy.
It's not like that at all anymore, is it?
No.
Fulgrim soon, guys.
Okay, welcome back everybody to the last part of the show, the Lords of Law quiz, where I pit Matt Welshie against each other to find out who is the Lord of Law. And this week we've got 40k sex positions. Ooh. So I'm going to tell you guys the name of a saucy sexual position, 40k themed, and you have to tell me what you think that position entails.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first sexy position is, what is the lone guardsman?
I reckon that's just masturbating.
So I was going to say, self-sex, masturbation.
It's just having a wank.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm afraid that the lone guard. I can't give either of you a point for that one. The lone guardsman is where one person has to satisfy a room of 30 people in the space of 30 minutes, armed only with the cheapest dildo from Wish.com.
Oh,
so, what is Makarai's mucky lunch?
Oh, is it like eating out an asshole?
Yeah, I reckon it's getting deep into a fungal hole.
Yeah, you can both have a point for that, because it's having someone sit on your face and you eat their ass for 15 years. Okay.
He calls it getting lucky.
So what is a Tau threesome?
Something to do with their fishy feet, camel toes. Camel toes.
Something's getting fucked. It's a camel toe in
their head thing.
Nose vagina.
Getting fucked in the face.
Getting fucked in the head. Fucking a towel guy in the head.
A hoofing in the nose vagina.
A hoofing in the nose vagina. Cool. Well, I'm giving you a point for the expression "hoofing in a nose vagina." But what I had written down here was it's where you're in a couple and you entice a third in through your gun collection, and then all three of you bang in front of a camel. Cool. So what is the Emperor's golden bone?
Well, haven't we talked
is it like
about
a big
this
strap
before?
on?
Isn't the Emperor's golden bone the vibrator that keeps him alive? I think, because we've discussed
the vibrating.
Oh, the thing he's sat on.
That he's sat on.
Yeah.
It's kind of there's a bit of that going on with it.
It's a giant like strap-on thing.
Is it if you're one of the High Lords, every year you get to go and sit on his lap and see what comes up?
Get some of the secondary vibrations from his cold dead lap.
Yeah.
Okay, so the real answer is getting a blowjob on the bog whilst watching a series of security monitors.
Oh, intriguing.
Yeah, saucy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, orc sex. What are people these days calling orc sex?
I don't know. I mean, proper like BDSM, proper like violent shit, maybe like violent food sex.
I don't reckon the orcs ever wear protection. I reckon it's sloppy. Sloppy bukkake.
Sloppy and dirty.
Yeah.
Oily. I don't mean like body oil. I mean like machine
oil. Yeah.
Is it banging a car? Is it something mechanical things like shagging a gear stick?
That's how they make them work. They don't come inside all these machines.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's so many videos online of people sitting on gear sticks.
What's that?
I went through a phase of liking that.
What's that gun that sucks in the Gretchen? Maybe it's putting your knob in one of those.
Oh, like
the shock attack gun, the vortex gun.
And then they've got that bubble chucker thing.
Bubble chucker.
Yeah. Okay,
like
well,
a wet...
I'm gonna leave. You're kind of. I'll give you guys a clue. It's kind of an airborne thing because they reproduce through the air, don't they?
Oh, is it like six in one of those sex swings, swinging through the air? No, I don't know.
No. Okay, well,
That's
I
not
don't
really
think either
orky.
of you are going to get it. So it's where a dude jizzes in the air at the same time that some bird squirts, and they mix it together, hoping that it will form together a baby. Because that's how science works, right? Welshie?
Yeah.
That's checks out.
Cool. All right. What is a mannish job, like a Ferris Manish job?
Oh, that's got to
hand
be a
job.
fisting.
Oh
Big
yeah.
metal fisting. Or like one of those like mechanical dildo machines, like attached to a 2-stroke.
Well, what happened to him? What happened to Ferris Manish?
You lose your hand inside someone.
A head, just blowjob because he lost his head.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the
you're
sex when
halfway
they
there.
kill people? S&M. Is that S&M?
You're thinking of snuff movies.
Snuff, yeah, snuff movie.
Is it fucking a blowjob from your brother?
Oh, well, no.
Because Fulgrim made him lose his head.
It's a blowjob
Incest.
that has to. It's a blowjob that you cut off halfway through and shout, "You've lost your head," and then you run out of the house. So there we go. So this is the last one. So this is for all the points as per usual. Welshie, you're coming into the lead here with 2, Matt on 1. So all to play for. This is a 10-pointer. What is a Slaanesh jackpot?
Oh man, I mean, everyone.
So many things.
I'll give you a clue. It's sold as a demonette simulator.
Is it getting tossed off by a crab? A crab's claw.
Yes.
You're close.
Oh.
I mean, I was picturing the layers and layers, the rows and rows of tits.
Is it fucking a cow whilst a crab tosses you off?
Getting a rusty trombone from a crab.
There's got to be a cow involved somewhere. As well.
Okay, well, I'm going to
What about fucking a crab?
I'm going to give you a point, Welshie. It's not quite right, but I'm going to give you a point. The real answer is fucking a fleshlight strapped to a live angry crab.
Okay. I can't believe I got that close, if I'm honest.
There we go. Welshie, you are the Lord of Law. How does it feel?
I feel just enlightened by what we've learned this evening.
Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.